Stalking is a crime of power and control, and over 3 million people a year fall victim to the unrelenting, obsessive attention of a stalker. January is National Stalking Awareness Month, which is why we are talking today to Dr. Michelle Ward, who is a criminal psychologist and stalking victim. Her series, Stalked, Someone's Watching, premieres tonight on Investigation Discovery, and she joins us this morning live from Los Angeles. Good morning, Dr. Ward. So good to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, especially holiday season, a lot of people spending a lot of money, getting out and about. It's really an important topic to talk about. So let me ask you first, what makes a person stalk someone else?
You know, I wish there were a clear answer to that, but there's not. There's different ways that you get a stalker. You know, if it's a former partner or intimate relationship, often it's perceived rejection. You know, whether you're actually rejecting someone or he or she just perceives it, doesn't matter.
Right.
But that can even be the case with strangers. They perceive a rejection. But that's just one of the reasons people stalk. People stalk because they get obsessed for unknown reasons. I mean, there's biological explanations, there's environmental explanations, but you can't really ever know what is going to make a stalker stalk.
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, the thing is, we use the term very loosely. I know a lot of times we joke with each other, we say, oh, I'm stalking your Facebook page, I stalked you today, but it's a really serious situation. So can you tell us some of the signs of stalking to look for?
Absolutely. It's very serious. It's not a new crime, but it's a very misunderstood crime. And you need to look for different things depending on who the stalker is. So if you're in a relationship with someone who's belittling you, demeaning you, and trying to control all the aspects of your life, red flag. Another red flag is someone who's trying to fast track the pace of your relationship. You want to be very aware of that. People who are trying to control you. And often it means nothing, but sometimes it can lead to stalking behaviors.
Sure.
And then on a more of a public sphere, you want to pay attention to people who seem to know an awful lot about you. And that's difficult for someone like you who's in the public eye because you are out there. But then for the rest of us, you want to make sure that you don't put a lot of information out in cyberspace. You want to make sure that your emails and your addresses and phone numbers are all unpublished. You want to protect your physical being as best you can.
Would you recommend, I mean, one of the things I see, because I reference Facebook because it's such a big thing in our society now, would you recommend not putting things like where people do check-ins, and not necessarily somebody like myself in the public eye, but anybody for that matter who does the check-ins to places, because then everybody knows where you are at all times and with who? What do you think about that?
I think it's horrible, and I think Facebook needs to take a look at that, because not only are you letting everyone know where you are, if you have children, you're letting everyone know where your children are, and also, once something's in cyberspace, you can't ever retrieve it again.
That's right.
So maybe you're not being stalked today, but maybe you're being stalked next week, and that person can see where you're going, what your patterns are, who you're with. It's really dangerous, and since it's so new, we're not sure of all the repercussions yet, but I imagine as time progresses, we're going to learn that we really need to be more vigilant about protecting ourselves in the cyber world.
Absolutely. And you know, I mentioned earlier that you've been a victim of stalking. Would you mind sharing your story with us?
Sure. I've actually had two situations about 10 years apart. One was a man with whom I worked who had an imaginary relationship with me, and it got a little ugly. I ended up having to move, and eventually it went away, but it was a number of years. And then the second situation, I still don't know who the stalker is.
Wow.
But he managed to break into my house. Again, I had to move, haven't had any problems in the last few years, but it was incredibly debilitating, scary, and felt like psychological rape.
And very extreme. I mean, so let me ask you this, how can a victim of stalking protect themselves, someone like yourself? I mean, you moved, that's very extreme. What do you recommend to people out there who are being stalked right now?
Well, I have to say, moving actually doesn't often work. I mean, a person who's really set on stalking you is going to find you. The best thing to do is to alert people around you, let them know, hey, I'm being stalked. This is what the person looks like. This is what he or she drives. Tell law enforcement immediately. The sooner you can let them know, the better they can protect you. You can eventually get enough evidence, not so much evidence, but you can tell them enough things where they can put a protective order in place. And then eventually, if there's a violation of that, they can arrest the stalker. And then, like we discussed before, become anonymous. Don't have published phone numbers, make sure your address is unlisted, etc. And vary your ways to work, to the places you frequent. Don't be predictable.
Okay. And you know, what's going to be so helpful will be your new show. Can you tell us a little bit about the program? It's called Stalked, Someone's Watching.
Yes, it's a great show. It airs every Monday night. The premiere is tonight, and it's various types of stalking episodes. I mean, you have the person who's been stalked by their ex-lover, people who are stalked by complete strangers. We have celebrities who've been stalked. We have people who have been really triumphant, and some stories that don't end up so great. So there's a lot of tips and information you can pull from each show, and fascinating elements, like anyone can be stalked. I mean, there's people from every walk of life in our show.
Well, we're really looking forward to seeing it, and I think it'll be very helpful to so many people. 8:30 local time tonight on Investigation Discovery. Thank you so much, Dr. Ward, and continue to stay safe.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And our friends from Bishop's Lodge Ranch Resort Hotel and Spa have brought us some holiday cheer. They're coming up next in our Builder Source Kitchen. Don't go away.